So my name's Tutchener-Sharp, and my story begins with an excruciating headache. A headache so bad it felt like someone was stabbing me in the back of my right eye. I went to the hospital to be rushed through A&E, given a CT scan and various other tests before being put into a room on my own to wait for the results. I fell asleep and then was woken at 1 o'clock in the morning by the doctor, who woke me to say, "You've had a brain hemorrhage and we've discovered a lump on your brain." She then went on to ask if I had any history of cancer in my family, and then she left me all alone in the room all night. It was the most devastating news that you could have, and at the time my children were just 1 and 3 years old, and all I could think of all night was, I cannot leave my children without a mum. What happened next was various other tests, a meeting with a neurosurgeon, and discovering that I was going to have brain surgery. Now, no one wants their brain operated on. I was told I'd have a piece of my skull removed. They'd take out the lump from my brain, making sure they didn't damage any of the tissue around the lump, and then they'd reattach my skull with metal plates. It sounded completely barbaric, and I was completely and utterly terrified. In the run-up to the surgery, lots of different things went through my head. The main thing still was, I cannot leave those boys without a mum. But there was other things too, like I couldn't be honest, even though my friends and family were so supportive and I was so lucky to have them, but I actually felt quite lonely because I couldn't be honest with them about how scared of dying I was. I also felt really let down by my body, which sounds weird, but it was like we were meant to be a team. How did it let this happen? And I also found myself writing letters to my children and my loved ones just in case I wasn't going to come out of the surgery, telling them the things that I found it too hard to say before I went in. And I also found myself, it's so true what people say about the pearly gates. It might sound cliche, but you do find yourself there when you're facing death. And I was looking back over my life and asking myself if I was happy with how I'd lived it. And I thought about all sorts of things, like places I'd never been and things I'd never done, but those weren't the important things to me. Yeah, I'd never been to Australia and I'd never been skiing, but I was kind of like, it doesn't really matter. The thing that really bothered me was when I was thinking about my legacy and thinking, how will I be remembered if I don't make it through? How will people remember me? And this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach made me realize that it wasn't how I wanted to be remembered. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd been a good person, but I hadn't done enough good. I hadn't helped enough people, and I hadn't had enough of an impact during my life. And I didn't know until that point that it was so important to me. And the feeling that it might be too late to make a change was such a horrible feeling, like this empty feeling in the pit of my stomach, like, oh my God, I might never get to change that. I might never be able to create a legacy that I'd actually be proud of. So I made myself a pact that if I made it through my surgery, whatever I did next, had no idea what it was then, obviously. I was just trying to survive. Whatever it was going to be something good, something that helped people, and that's something that had an impact on people. So I started getting ready to face the surgery and saying goodbye to my children and my parents and my husband. To go into theatre was the hand down the hardest thing I've ever had to do, not knowing if I'd see them again. I had 10 hours in surgery, which actually went very quickly for me, but not so quickly for my poor family. And I came out in intensive care, and I was awake, and I can't explain the feeling of happiness that I was alive. I was absolutely ecstatic. I mean, I was high as a kite, partly from the morphine, but also at the sheer joy of being alive. the doctors kept asking me questions like, who's the Prime Minister? What day is it? To see if there was any damage, brain damage, post-surgery. And she was trying to make me drink tea. The nurse was trying to make me drink this sweet tea, and I was drinking it and going, this is the best tea I've ever had in my life. And I remember looking up at her and then going, and your eyebrows are the best eyebrows I've ever seen in my life. And she was like, okay. But to me, everything looked so beautiful. It's like everything was suddenly in high definition, and colours were so bright. Everything was so strong, and I was just so, so happy to be alive and to have a second chance at life. What followed was 10 days in hospital recovering. So this side of my head was shaved with 20 staples down my head. I looked like Frankenstein, and I terrified myself when I looked in the mirror, let alone letting my children see me like that. As I said, they were 1 and 3, and that sight would have stayed with them forever. So I didn't see them for 10 days, and not seeing your 1 and 3-year-old child for 10 days, believe me, is a very, very, very long time. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wished had been available to comfort them while we were apart. And I thought, I wish I could have given them a snuggly little superhero. Imagine if I could have given them a snuggly superhero and said, this superhero is going to watch over you, it's going to keep you safe. And I thought, I wish on the back there could have been a pocket, and I could have put my photo and said, Mummy's still with you, I'm still there, so you just hold me close. And I kept thinking I would have loved to have been able to give them these. And then I thought, why don't I make them? They don't exist. They would have comforted my children. This could be my get well goal, and this could be my way of improving that legacy and actually doing some good. So I started hatching plans of how I was going to create these little superheroes. And when I got out of hospital, that was my focus, create these superheroes. And then I thought, I want a clothing line to go with this, to fill people with superpowers when they need it most. All with this neon pink bolt, which is a superpower button to press to get your superpowers when you need a burst. And I thought I wanted to create some super scarves as well, scarves to wrap women up who have cancer. I want to give them a superpower-infused comfort blanket to wrap them up when they start chemotherapy. And so far, we've donated over 53,000 scarves to women starting chemo, which, to me, thinking about my legacy now, next time I find myself at those pearly gates, I hope that this time I think, I have done some good. But I'm definitely not stopping here. And the thing about creating a fashion brand, like if you'd have said to me before I was ill, you're going to create a fashion brand, I'd have gone, yeah, right. I didn't work in the fashion industry. I had never created a brand. But being given a second chance at life, being full of purpose and desperately wanting to improve on that legacy and help people, I no longer saw barriers. I thought I could do anything. So I went about setting up the fashion brand. I designed a collection. I found manufacturers. I found stockists. I built a website. I literally felt like I could do anything. And I think what I want to try and say to you is it's not too late either. I started Scamp and Dude when I was 40. And also, it doesn't take, you think it takes years to set up a fashion brand. For me, having my brain surgery to launching Scamp and Dude in Liberty and on my website was only 11 months. So it's less than a year from me having the brain surgery to launching the brand. So if you've got that fire in your belly and you believe you can do it, and you're full of purpose and you have a second chance at life, you can do it. So I would just say, don't wait till you're at those pearly gates. Ask yourself now, if tomorrow is your last day on earth, how do you feel about your legacy? How will you be remembered? And what will your legacy be? And if you're not happy with what you find, be brave enough to make that change. Have you helped enough people? What's really important to you? What difference have you made to this world? And then I'd also say, as well as having a purpose and helping people, make sure you have fun along the way too, because fun is really important. Make sure you have adventures, travel the world, dance on tables. Don't save anything for best. Burn your candles. Wear your best pants. And make sure you're living your very best life. Thank you.